Welcome to Full Speed Ahead. I'm Craig Fuller here with Paris Cole, the CEO of Truck Stop. Paris, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Craig. Great to see you again, and thanks for having me on the show.
You know, you and have had a number of conversations about what's going on in Truck Stop and the broader landscape in trucking. It's been a couple amazing years, not just for Truck Stop itself, but the industry. I'd love to get the update on what are you guys seeing in the market right now, and then you also had this big transaction that you guys have just acquired, RMIS. Would love to dive into that, but let's start generally with the market. What are you guys sensing in the market?
Yeah. These are unprecedented times for us, not only or in a variety of different ways. So if we look at load volumes that are showing up on our marketplace, they're up substantially year over year. And if we just look at the first 3 months of 2021 and compare those to 2020, 2020 was actually a pretty good year up until April. We saw a significant decrease in loads being posted in April. That came back later in the year, but the first 3 months were actually a pretty good year. And so when we look at year over year growth, January was up 50%. February and March were up 100% year over year. So February and March both will exceed our previous high, which happened in 2018. And so both of those months are higher than what we saw in 2018, and that was in June of 2018. And so the fact that we're seeing this much freight on our site this early in the year, which typically Q2 is when we see the bulk of the freight, it really, to me, signals a very strong, very healthy market for our customers.
I mean, every metric across the board. The one that I think has caused a lot of stress, not so much, it certainly drives the spot market conditions, but is the driver situation, the fact that capacity is not coming back into the market. It's keeping capacity tight. And I don't know what you see, Paris. Do you see any relief in that anytime soon?
I think there are a couple things. One is just the rates, the pure market dynamics. I think that will start to draw more carriers in over time. That's probably slower than what the industry would like. But if we look at rates in the month of March, factored rates in the month of March were about $1,530 per load, which historically they're around $1,200 a load. So, certainly shippers and brokers are paying much more today to move their freight, which while it's not ideal for them, they would love to move it for less. It's great for our carrier customers. And so I think that will start to draw carriers back into the industry. I think there are some other things that may play into that, but I think those are going to be even longer potentially. If we look at deregulating some of the restrictions around driver age and things like that, or making it easier for drivers to get into the industry, I think that's certainly a possibility, but I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I think these conditions are going to stay this way for a while.
Yeah, it certainly gets a lot of conversation. Some of the fleets, it's interesting because I think at times some fleets want this sort of loose regulatory environment so they can do what they want, but that often hurts them because it creates all this capacity. And so it's always this interesting, at time our industry, which we love so much, can shoot itself in the foot because it creates rules or fights rules that actually will help create stronger pricing. I mean, ultimately, you want a market to work, and you want capacity to be able to get products. My wife and I have built an addition to our house, and we have items, windows and doors and furniture that's 3-4 months behind, just because there isn't enough capacity. But not just in freight capacity, but it also just in general supply chain issues. It's just been a mess. But that's good for our industry. I'm curious what this infrastructure bill that President Biden has suggested or has talked about, the amount of money that's going to be spent on infrastructure, how much that will drive additional demand. You guys have a lot of exposure to flatbed, or at least have been the market leader in the flatbed load board business. I would imagine it's a really bullish thing for your marketplace.
It is, and that's it's been interesting to watch the dynamic over last year since the pandemic started. Initially we saw volumes in refrigerated freight and van freight increase dramatically. I talked about earlier, April of last year was a low month, but then after April, things really started to take off. But they took off primarily in refrigerated and van freight. Flatbed was a little slower to pick back up, both in terms of volumes and in terms of rates. Now, as we make the turn into 2021, we're starting to see flatbed accelerate. And so it'll be interesting to see as more and more things open up. Hopefully plants start increasing capacity. We'll see what happens with oil and that's impact on flatbed freight. But I'm pretty bullish about what's going to happen, not only in flatbed, but in freight in general through the remainder of the year.
Yeah, it seems like the industrial economy, The Economist had a great article about it this week, is that this could be the industrial renaissance of sort, where manufacturing is coming back into the United States. This massive infrastructure bill will help drive that. We could see domestic manufacturing return. And one of the things that's probably not talked about enough in our industry is that this $3 trillion infrastructure bill will be tied to American-based industrial activity. So in order to participate in the government spending, you'll have to produce a lot of these products, this infrastructure manufacturing onshore, which just drives this economy. And it's exciting for our industry because it means more freight has got to move. We got to fix the driver situation, or at least find ways to cope, because I know when I talk to a lot of executives, that's the biggest thing on their mind is how do I solve it?
And like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I just saw a statistic the other day where the average driver or owner-operator net income was a little over $60,000 in 2019. In 2020, it was closer to $70,000, and that was before rates were at $1,500 plus a load. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2021 and see if that increase in rate attracts more talent to the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting because I came from a fleet. My family's a large trucking company and been around it, and it's interesting because one of the things you talk to owners of fleets is the first thing they talk about is can't find drivers and how much more money they have to spend on drivers. It's interesting because in some ways it's like, well, this is good. We're able to increase the rates that drivers are able to get, even as employees, which actually just helps everyone across their industry. It makes it a much healthier industry in terms of financial support for the folks that do all the hard work. So in some ways there's this sort of, we can sort of complain or be challenged by having to increase pay, and the challenge is there, but there's also this, that's a good thing in the long run, because it means that it's creating a more dynamic market, and it's also supporting the individuals that do the really hard work, which is driving a truck, because it is certainly hard. Paris, I want to shift a little bit. You guys have made a big acquisition this year, but you've also had a change at the top. A lot of management, executive staff have left the company to do other things. Now, they've all done and landed in fantastic roles. You have a new CEO with Trent Broberg that took the role at an auto hauler. So it's certainly not a suggestion that these folks are not moving up in the world, if you will. And you must be proud that they're a part of that coaching tree that is Truck Stop. But what does this mean for Truck Stop as you lose this talent and these folks go on to other things?
Yeah. It's always with mixed emotions that you have a change in leadership. On one hand, we're certainly sad to lose those people that we get to work with every single day, and we lose their experience within the company. But at the same time, we're extremely excited for them and for their careers. You brought up Trent. Trent is a phenomenal executive. I think he'll do wonders as a CEO. And that's something that he and I have talked about in the past, and I know that he's wanted that role for a while now, and we've been trying to prepare him for that. And so, that's how I look at it. I came from public accounting, where it's move up or out, and they go through a tremendous amount of turnover, and that's not what we're trying to promote here at Truck Stop. But there's this collegial or alumni feeling. I'm an alum of Deloitte, for example. I still get emails from Deloitte, and I attend Deloitte functions, even though I left Deloitte nearly 15 years ago, and I still have a lot of great connections with the people I worked with. And so, for us, that's really what I'm trying to create here at Truck Stop, and what our team is trying to create is that environment where we provide people an opportunity to grow. Ideally, we want them to grow as much as they can within Truck Stop, but we know that not everyone's going to be able to grow and reach the goals that they have in their own careers within the company. I'm not going anywhere. I don't think anytime soon. And so for Trent to become a CEO and obtain that role, it wasn't going to happen here at Truck Stop. And so certainly supported Trent in that transition. Same thing with other executives as well. Yeah.
Maybe you guys are like the Alabama of the industry, where they come, they work for a couple of years, help you guys continue to build this enterprise, and then go on to their own coaching career, their own CEO career, because that's certainly what we're seeing with a lot of executives that have had the opportunity to do that. But one of the things that we ask, or the industry asks, is what is the story at Truck Stop? Before we went on air, you gave me a sense of how well you guys are doing. You want to share that with the audience?
Yeah. So we just completed our best month ever in the company's history. So March was a fantastic month in every aspect of the business. Our payments business had its best month. Our freight matching business had its best month. And so we continue to grow, continue to evolve. We just recently have launched our newest iteration of the freight matching marketplace, and all new customers are now on that marketplace, that platform. We're transitioning our existing customers over to the new platform as we speak, and just really excited about what's happening with the business. So all things within the business right now are running at full speed ahead, and no pun intended here. And really excited about what's happening within the business.
So Paris, you did a pretty substantial transaction earlier in March where you guys bought RMIS. Tell us a little bit about RMIS, and why did Truck Stop acquire them?
Yeah. So for those that aren't familiar with RMIS, RMIS is the leader in carrier onboarding and compliance solutions. So what that means is if a carrier wants to onboard with a broker or shipper, that's a very manual process typically. And it involves a lot of paperwork, moving back and forth. And there's a lot of potential liability created through a manual process. And that's prior to RMIS, that's what was happening within the industry. Most brokers employed a staff of people to obtain this paperwork from carriers and make sure that the carrier's insurance and safety records and all those complied with the company's policies. RMIS has created a service now that automates all of that. And today, RMIS counts 9 out of the top 10 largest freight brokers and 3PLs as customers, and they have over half of the top 50 3PLs and brokers as their onboarding and compliance customers. And so for us, when we think about our mission of bringing brokers and carriers together, RMIS is a key part of that. They're the glue, so to speak, that facilitates the actual ability of a carrier to work with a broker, and vice versa. And so when you complement Truck Stop's freight matching marketplace with RMIS's onboarding and compliance services, we now have a powerful platform that we can facilitate the the match not only of freight but also of carriers with brokers in ways that we couldn't do before. And so this is, we believe, really one of those instances where it's a case of 1 + 1 = 4 or 5 or more. There's just a number of opportunities for us to leverage what each company does best.
So where does this go from here? I mean, you've got two separate businesses, you've acquired it. Are you public about how big RMIS was in terms of size and scale of the company?
We're not in terms of their financial numbers. I can tell you that they have 150 professionals in the business. So if that gives you some idea of perhaps the scale. So by no means are they what I would call a small company. They certainly have some size. And what's exciting to us as we think about acquisitions is RMIS checked all of the boxes. So they're EBITDA positive. They've had a history of strong financial growth. And so when you think about Truckstop and what we've done, RMIS is a very similar company in many ways and fits nicely with what we're trying to do.
So pairs are EBITDA positive companies. And when you look at M&A, is that an important criteria for you guys?
That is, yes. Yeah, we absolutely are focused not only on top line growth, but also on the company's ability to achieve that growth. And if they can do both, be EBITDA positive and grow at a nice rate, those are the types of companies that we look for.
So what's next for Truckstop? I mean, the business we've talked about. This is a massively healthy market. It's incredible. You know, just what's happening overall has been incredible this past year. There's a lot of startups that are very early stage. Most of those companies, even the ones that have raised a lot of capital, are not cash flow positive. We're not cash flow positive, and it's something that we believe that we can hit the next year, but it's not a priority compared to growth. How do you look at the landscape of all these startups that are out there? And there's a lot of companies certainly that you could acquire, but how do you guys decide this is a business that we want to be in?
Yeah, so the financial aspect, I would say, is just one aspect. And like I mentioned, we look for top line growth and those companies that are able to be EBITDA positive. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't ever invest or acquire a business that's not EBITDA positive. But those are the ones that sort of stand out to us. And those are the ones that we look for first. In addition to the financial opportunities, we look at the strategic rationale. And when we looked at RMIS, it was clear that they were the leader in onboarding and compliance services. We have tools similar to RMIS within Truckstop in some cases. And it would be interesting to note that unsolicited, we would have mutual customers tell us how great RMIS is and all the wonderful things that we were doing. And so on one hand, our ego was hurt maybe a little bit. On the other hand, it just confirmed our desire to acquire the business. So as we think about what's next for us, I think now we have the capability to really become more predictive in the way that we help brokers and carriers work together. RMIS is one of those pieces that we were missing because we didn't know which carriers were working with which brokers. Now we know that. We know that in spades. And so we're going to be able to help facilitate our broker and shipper customers finding more and more capacity that they didn't even know existed.
So you basically bringing more intelligence to your brokerage customers so that they can be more effective and eliminate a lot of the sort of false positives, if you will, in the marketplaces. Because it's always sort of one of the big rubs with the load board business, if you will, is there's a lot of false positives, a lot of noise, and how do you prioritize it and how do you properly match up? You guys recently launched your Book It Now product, which provides that direct booking through the platform. How has that been going for you?
Yeah, it continues to grow. We're still we're a little over a year into its launch, and so it's still early days. But when you talk to our carriers that use Book It Now, they absolutely love it. So we have out of 5, a rating of 5. Our carriers give it a 4.3, and we have one of our customers. They gave us a list of carriers that they had only used once within the previous 100 days, or excuse me, 180 days. Out of that list that they gave us, we now have helped create 1,000 carriers that have moved more than 5 loads in the last year for that particular broker. And so we're able through Book It Now to not only better match carriers with freight, but we're also able to increase capacity for our brokerage customers that use it, because our carriers love it. Once they experience it and they don't have to negotiate over the phone, and they can just click a button and be awarded the freight. They want to do business more with those brokers that are using that functionality.
And with capacity as tight as it is, getting the ability to automate that so you can go back to working on the exceptions, but also able to secure that truck instantly makes it very valuable, I would imagine, for those brokerage customers, that workflow element. Where is TruckStop headed over the next couple of years? I mean, this is something that I always I draw a lot of inspiration from financial services and fintech, and I know you guys have a payments business that's part of the TruckStop story. But I often think of what's happening in financial markets and fintech is overflowing to the freight industry, or we can draw inspiration from that. I often think of TruckStop as the NASDAQ of the trucking market, particularly when you start doing the automated booking. Where do you guys take this in the next 5 years?
I think you'll see more and more integration of our products. So today, through acquisition, we have a number of different services that we offer. We have the payments business, the freight matching business. Now with RMIS, we have the onboarding and compliance, as well as Safer Watch. I would be remiss to not mention that acquisition that we made a couple of years ago. So now, over the coming years, you will see these products and services come together in ways that make it much easier for our customers to utilize. Today, they have to go to different websites. Tomorrow, they'll be able to go to one website. They'll be able to have access to not only these services, but also to the information in places that maybe they didn't have it before. So rather than navigating to a separate web page, they'll be able to have all of this information right at their fingertips.
So it's all about basically automation and workflow. And you think about the digitization that's taking place, eliminating a lot of that excess work that doesn't provide value at the end of the day, right?
That's right. That's right. And not only doing it on a reactive basis, if you think about a traditional load search that a carrier does, they have to input the information. In the future now, especially with this information that we have from RMIS, we will be able to more proactively and predictively present freight to carriers so that they don't even have to search for it. So again, reducing the amount of inefficiency in the system today.
That's awesome. It's obviously a great use case for that integration. Paris, I got to ask, public markets are super hot. I know you are a student of the market like I am. You mentioned it before. What does this mean for TruckStop? As we look at what's happened in the public markets, looks like TruckStop would be a fantastic company to go public. Are we going to see that from the TruckStop story? We try not to be specific or focused on the outcome. We're more focused on building the best business that we can, and we think the outcome will take care of itself. So we've heard from others that they think our profile might be great for a public company, and while we're flattered, and that may be one of the options that's available to us, that is only one option, and so. We know at some point there'll be another transaction. When that is, we haven't made a specific determination on that, and what that looks like in our minds is still open to several different possibilities. Well, I hope when you figure out that path, when that path finds you, that you'll come on here and share it with us so that we can be a part of the celebration as that takes place. Paris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Best of luck rest of the year. Don't forget, we have F3 coming to Chattanooga. You and I can do this on stage. How do you feel about that?
I'm ready to
Future
travel
Freight
again.
Festival, November. So what's shocking about that is we launched it in early March. We had a budget. We're already double the budget in terms of bookings. If it continues the same momentum through November, it will not only be the biggest event we've ever hosted, it'll be bigger than all of the events combined. That's assuming that it continues the same momentum. So Paris, love to see you there. Love to spend some time with you. You can also get tickets on FreightWaves. There is a site up there for book it. So be sure to do that if you haven't done that. Paris, thank you so much. Best of luck, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.